What's good, y'all? Good morning. Welcome back to the Sorry is True podcast. Y'all make sure that y'all like, comment, and subscribe. We pretty much here every day with news and updates from our beloved hip hop culture, our beloved world of hip hop. This has been ridiculous, man. Like the amount of news and viral nature of this Big Meech and 50 Cent and Tammy and Cuffy, and it's a lot going on. Now they say don't make any of these type of snitch or rat allegations without paperwork. Now I'm very, very surprised to see that 50 Cent continues to push just this Tammy piece. Well, I shouldn't say I'm surprised. Actually, I understand now why he's pushing Tammy. I even asked some previous questions about Tammy, like what type of person was she? Was she involved? Was she just a civilian that got wrapped up in this? Or was she in the loop? And then that would then make her a snitch. I have those answers now. I have more details on Cuffy. I have more of an understanding on Meech's involvement in some of these accusations as well. I'm going to bring up the paperwork. Okay. They say don't talk in these type of directions without the paperwork. And I want to give a shout out to the chat before we get into these weeds. S Wilder, salute to you, homie. The homie hit me up on Instagram like so many of y'all do. And S Wilder, he sent me two screenshots of the paperwork, like page like 1 and like page 11 of the paperwork. The paperwork is like 30 something pages, right? But after he sent me those screenshots, I went and I pulled the whole thing. Right. I said, let me go pull this whole shit up. Now that I'm seeing what's going on out there. So thank you to the chat. You guys really helped me out. Whether it's on Twitter, whether you DM me something, videos, exclusives, news, ARP cover this. This is an answer to your question. Thank you. Thank you. Chat. We are moving over here, okay? But let's get into this. Let's get into what y'all are here for. The actual paperwork. Now, when I say the actual paperwork, mind you, this paperwork right here is pretty much revolving around the accused, Dion Lamont Gatlin. When you see that name or when you see the last name Gatlin, that is Cuffy. Okay. This was filed January 12th, 2018. Big Meech was arrested and convicted prior to this, I believe. So Big Meech is already in jail during what we're about to read. And keep that in mind because that's going to be relevant. So let's just look at this. United States versus Deontay Lamont Gatlin. Once again, that Gatlin is Cuffy. Timothy Lamont Rush, he's not really going to have anything to do with this paperwork as far as what we're getting into. Andre Alfonso Rush, he won't have anything to do with this paperwork. Lorenzo Ralph Gibbs, he won't have anything to do with this paperwork, really. I want to put out this disclaimer for myself. Throughout this paperwork, we're going to see CS1 a million times. Confidential source 1. When you see CS1, confidential source 1, informant, snitch, rat, right? We get it. The disclaimer that I want to put out is that it's very well discussed on the internet that CS1 is Tammy. Now, there's even other court documents and that I went to that has like wiretaps and all types of stuff. And a lot of it is suppressed. People went back, whether it was the defendants for their own personal reasons or their lawyers work for them, keep things secret. You see, even in the Jay-Z case, Jane Doe, we never found out who that was. A lot of it is still suppressed. And technically, me personally, to try to be responsible, I have never seen a 1000% confirmation that CS1, confidential source 1, actually is Tammy. Now, I know 50 Cent is claiming that he's in direct contact with Tammy. Tammy called him. He's got a documentary that he's promoting that's coming out with Tammy. Everybody on the internet is saying this, but I want to remain responsible for me. Now, when we go over CS1 in this paperwork, I'm going to replace those 3 letters or whatever, CS1. I'm going to say the name Tammy. But once again, my disclaimer is only going on these heavy sources that we continue to see, which is that CS1 is Tammy. So I'm going to replace the name, but I just want to leave a little small gray there. Okay, people? Now, this is the paperwork once again. United States Court, Eastern District of Missouri. This was filed in. I'm going to skip down to the 4th page, which is the first page that we see Big Meech's name come up. Okay. Page 4. You see it's even highlighted here, right? Because I got it on my search browser. All right. When you see Demetrius Flannery, anytime they now refer to Flannery in the paperwork, I'm just going to say Meech. So when I see CS1, I'm going to say Tammy. When I see Flannery, I'm going to say Meech. When I see Gatlin, I'm going to say Cuffy. Okay. And the 4th name that we're going to see a lot as we're reading through this is Suarez. Suarez is the 4th person involved in this, from what the paperwork says, drug transaction that was set up amongst allegedly Meech, Tammy, and Cuffy was involved. And a lot of this was a part of these guys eventually getting themselves in trouble, right? You know, it was all based on cocaine and drug dealing and whatnot, right? There's wiretaps, there's informants. This was the wire here. This was like it was a lot on the street. So you got big, heavy law enforcement at play, right? Let's skip down to what I believe is page 11, right? Where this becomes relevant information. And mind you, people, by the time we get to the end of the stream, I'm going to answer to you what I believe um, Big Meech's label is or should be, right? I'm going to answer that question. All right, let's keep going. Page 10. Okay, this is where I want to start. Starting on page 11, you see number 2 here. CS1s, remember, I'm going to do the name swapping, but, you know, everybody's saying Tammy. So Tammy's relationship with Meech, Suarez, and Cuffy. Okay. When Tammy became a DEA informant, Tammy was and had been a longtime friend of associate Big Meech. Specifically, Tammy held Meech's power of attorney and life rights with creative control. We hear about the creative control stuff a lot, right? Is this about a scorned woman and Meech was released to Florida with his baby mother and he was with Tammy prior? Is this a scorn? We hear all that. We understand man-woman relationships scorn people, but this brings us a little bit more, well, this paperwork brings us a little bit more black and white and away from some of the conspiracies and allows us to actually read, you know, where we can base our opinions for based off of more actual paperwork facts. Okay. So the life rights stuff is here in the paperwork. And life rights. The right to tell and presumably sell Big Meech's life story for profit. Those rights, by Tammy's estimation, could be worth as much as $1 million. Both Agent Harvey and Agent Cromer were aware of Tammy's relationship with Big Meech. So these are the agents, I assume the FBI agents, Harvey and Cromer, that are doing or conducting this investigation and also in touch with Tammy. Okay. And they got the FBI agents or the agent's testimony, of course, documented here. Testimony of Agent Harvey. Tammy testified that Big Meech was very well known, and it was not at all unusual for Tammy to receive calls from total strangers asking about Big Meech. It was due to Tammy's relationship with Big Meech that Tammy first came in contact with both Suarez and Cuffy. In September 2011, Big Meech requested Tammy's help coordinating delivery of a load of cocaine to be controlled by Suarez, who at that point was already in contact with Tammy. Okay. Tammy's Tammy, oh, I'm sorry, CS1, yeah. Tammy's credibly testified that he or she, now they're saying he or she to hide the identity, of course, of CS1, but we're going to just say she, because once again, as per the internet and 50 Cent, it's like 95% decided that CS1 once again is Tammy. So Tammy credibly testified that she first met Suarez by telephone when Suarez contacted Tammy to ask how Big Meech was doing. Meech confirmed that he and Suarez were friends and that they had met in the county jail in Michigan. Although Tammy did not meet Suarez in person, she spoke with Suarez by phone and text. Additionally, Suarez sent Tammy a picture of himself. Okay. Sometime in 2012, Suarez asked Tammy if she knew someone who might want to buy some pills. According to Tammy, she was in a car with Agent Cromer. So at this point, she's working. At this point, she's in a car with Agent Cromer and she's getting calls about pills and whatnot. So she's working. And real quick off topic, this was my thing prior when I said, I have a question about Tammy also as it relates to people that's getting at 50 Cent. Is Tammy a person that is just a civilian, maybe was hanging around in some of these circles, like let's say IE BMF, right? And she got swept up. And when she got swept up, she started singing on things that she may have seen and knew. And she's more so civilian that told, no big deal. That's no, you're not living by street code. Versus, well, actually, there's three factors. The second one would be that you're knowing of the stuff that you're around, you're capitalizing on it, you're getting your extra bags here and there by running around and doing some of these errands or whatever for whoever. And then when you get grabbed, you tell. That's a snitch. This third one could be, I don't know, maybe you got approached because people get turned snitch or work and even get paid. Snitching is also a job at times, people. You can get approached by the FBI, right? And you could literally get offered a job. Was Bubbles from The Wire ever under arrest by Kima? Right? No, that was actually his people's, right? No, that's where the term working comes from. It can happen because you got arrested and you was let go and now you're out in the street and you're working, or it could happen that you was never under arrest. You just agreed to work for the fucking FBI. It's a job. I think people accuse them. You know what? I ain't even gonna go there. The Philly dude that has a blog. I ain't gonna go there. But when you get accused of working, this is one of the definitions of it. They say she's in the car with this agent. So careful who you sit next to. Literally. All right, let's get back to the paperwork. She's in a car with Agent Cromer during this first narcotic related conversation with Suarez. Agent Cromer overheard the call and signaled to Tammy to say yes, she knew someone. Wow, he's even full working. All right. Tammy was later contacted by an agent in California regarding Suarez. As with Suarez, defendant Gatlin Cuffey first contacted Tammy to see how Meech was doing in jail. Based on discussions with both Cuffey and Meech, Tammy understood that Cuffey and Meech were friends. Initially, Tammy's relationship with Cuffey was more of a business relationship and communication centered around Meech's life rights. Now, we've seen interviews that, Cuffey's doing all these jail calls home. And we see Cuffey saying that initially his interactions with Tammy was that he's riding around trying to land a deal for the BMF or the Big Meech or these life rights. It is, I assume, eventually what 50 Cent ended up taking on a documentary based on BMF, right? Because it could be a lucrative show, a lucrative documentary. Hip hop and the entertainment world is well aware of BMF. We're attracted to it and we want to hear the story. 50 Cent picked it up. And that's where you see people like Blue Da Vinci, who we're going to get into in the second half of the stream, say the story of, he gave Cuffey his blue Bentley to drive around to look more prestigious while he's trying to land these deals for these life rights. So he's saying, hey, Cuffey is out there and running around with Tammy trying to secure the bag, a legal bag, right? Not illegal, a space legal bag, right? All right, let's get back into this. However, at some point, Meech asked Tammy to connect Cuffey and Suarez, and the relationship between Tammy, Cuffey, and Suarez turned to narcotics. As per that paperwork, it goes from Tammy somehow being in the middle of Meech and Cuffy and these life rights, and somehow it now turns towards narcotics. Let's read this again just to make sure. I'm gonna start from here. I want to read that again because that is could be left up to interpretation, to be fair, but it's still an indication of something being said there. I just want to reread that. As with Suarez, defendant Cuffy first contacted Tammy to see how Meech was doing in jail. Hey, Tammy, you connected with Meech. How's he doing? He's in jail right now. Is he all right? Based on discussions with both Cuffy and Meech, Tammy understood that Cuffy and Meech were friends. Cool. Initially, Tammy's relationship with Cuffy was more of a business relationship and communications centered around Meech's life rights. That's how Cuffy and Tammy start off. However, at some point, Meech asked Tammy to connect Cuffy with Suarez. And the relationship between Tammy, Cuffy, and Suarez turned to narcotics. I'm going to be honest, people. Y'all know me, man. I try to be so respectful with my podcasting. That right there is going to be left up to interpretation, and I'm going to leave it there. Telephone toll records reflect that Suarez and Cuffy were in contact with each other on various devices from as early as March 2012 through August 2012. Although telephone toll records show that during the same time period, Suarez and with less frequency, Cuffy were in contact with Tammy. There is no evidence to suggest that Tammy participated in any of the early telephone calls between Suarez and Cuffy. In July 2012, Suarez invited Tammy to join him on a trip to St. Louis without stating why he was going to St. Louis. Tammy declined. Telephone toll records reflect Suarez contacted Tammy while Suarez was in St. Louis. Yeah, so notice that they say telephone toll. So these tolls are not just being used to grab your money; they're being used to also pick up your cell phone movement. I ain't doing shit. So I'll drive through a million fucking tolls with my cell phone on, actually in the midst of a conversation, and you ain't gonna get shit from me. Damn, you know how to be saying like the tow trucks with certain cameras on them, and like it's out there, man. It's a tech world we in, y'all. Like this is why the Vlads of the world would say you can't get away with crime in this era, in this age. And me as a civilian, I have no fucking problem with that. You know what I'm saying? So, wow. All right. At the evidentiary hearing, Tammy denied that Meech had any of. So start reading this sentence again, people. This is big. This is big. At the evidentiary hearing, Tammy denied that Meech had any involvement in any drug trafficking activities between Suarez and Cuffy, and denied that Tammy ever informed DEA agents that Meech was so involved. Now, there's a little bit of a contradictory in the actual paperwork that we just read in the paragraph above, right? Saying that, Tammy's in the middle of putting these people together after Cuffy reaches out and says, yo, how's Meech doing in jail, et cetera, et cetera. And then somehow this conversation between those three parties or four parties turns into narcotics. That's what the paperwork just said. And that's why I said respectfully, that will end up being left up to interpretation, right? But this piece right here now says that Tammy is speaking to the DA and she's denying that Big Meech had anything to do with any type, right? Okay. Let's go. Also denied that she ever informed DEA agents that Meech directed Tammy to connect Cuffy and Suarez. So what is painted as is like Cuffy and Suarez is possibly getting together and they busting some moves. How did they come together? That's being painted here. right? Did it come together from somebody in jail making putting these plays together, or and Tammy's the one that's actually taking the orders and putting them together outside? Or that's kind of the picture that I'm interpreting being painted here, right? But Tammy's now saying that that's not. She's removing Big Meech. Okay. CS1 also denied that she ever informed DEA agents that Meech directed Tammy to connect Cuffy and Suarez. However, this aspect of Tammy's testimony is not credible for at least three reasons. First, Tammy's testimony conflicts with the testimony of TFO Lang, the DEA St. Louis agent who interviewed Tammy about the events of August 5th. TFO Lang credibly testified that during his debrief of Tammy on August 6th, 2012, Tammy told him that Tammy had facilitated the introduction of Cuffy and Suarez at Big Meech's request. So her story is changing between agents. Okay. Second, now they're trying to discredit Tammy's statement about this. The second reason why Tammy's testimony also conflicts with the contemporaneous 2011 interview notes of DEA Atlanta investigator TFO Smith, which were introduced into evidence. Jesus, Tammy's in touch with agents from Atlanta, agents from St. Louis, and Jesus. Is there a word above working? Sheesh. Those notes are consistent with assertions in the affidavit regarding Meech's involvement in the suspected drug conspiracy. Finally, evidence presented at the hearing demonstrated that Tammy faced actual and perceived threats when court filings in the case revealed Tammy's identity. Specifically, on February 6, 2015, all defendants in this case filed pretrial motions, including separate motions to suppress wiretap evidence. That's what I saw online earlier this morning. I did see that. A bunch of suppressed documents and wiretaps. But I mean, that makes sense. Like, you want to give the world access to some of these actual wiretap conversations and let us hear Tammy on the phone and like, I mean, y'all somehow that shit comes out anyway. We see people in the box, their videos getting released. We see shooting videos getting released, and we just like, where'd this come from? It had to come from the FBI or some shit. Like, how did Diddy's footage come out, right? Of him beating up Cassie in the hallway. How did that come out, right? So, I mean, worse things have dropped. But yeah, a lot of this stuff was suppressed. Now, here's the thing about the whole suppression of evidence or documents or testimonies. Who was it? Who was it? They blamed King Yella of this. They said when King Yella was in the box and he was undergoing questioning, when he mentioned people like Snap Dog, when he mentioned people like 600 Breezy, when he mentioned, oh, this person, oh yeah, he's a BD, or that person, yeah, he's a GD. Now I said King Yella, he chipped himself bad by coming out and saying, I only said things that the world already knew. It's not about that. It's always a black and white street code. And this is coming from a person that's not a street nigga. It's giving information that corroborates or I don't got to go down the definition. It's just wrong to do if you abide by street code, period. What King Yella said that he did, right? And I mean that with no disrespect, and I ain't pointing no fingers. I ain't into it with none of these people. I don't know none of these people. You know what I'm saying? But a lot of people, I think 1090 Jake put that in his documentary too about King Yella, that when King Yella went back to suppress these not testimonies, but these documents or these whatever, you know, that's when it was actually publicly those public records were revealed, right? So suppression is a real thing. It's not always by the United States or the government or the DEA or the FBI. Sometimes it is. Suppress this because it can possibly reveal the identity of somebody that's working, somebody that's out here giving information, somebody that's out here telling, right? Other times it could come from the actual defendant. Get your attorney to suppress certain things, suppress this evidence, suppress this from coming in, suppress that testimony. And sometimes there's even trade-offs. Hey man, we giving you this, but that's what they're saying in this paperwork happened with Tammy. Tammy does she's going to hell and back to make sure that her identity isn't revealed because you're playing in the streets with street people, but you're working. You're sitting in a car next to agents. He's hinting you about what to say on the phone. So if your identity and all of this comes out via public record and this type of stuff, your life could be in danger. So suppression happens on both sides. It's a very, very real thing. Not everything is going to be publicly accessible, people. You're also going to see redactions and paperwork, all types of stuff. Um, all right, let's get back to this. Separate motions to suppress wiretap evidence. Okay. In March 2015, Tammy reviewed the electronic docket in this case and saw information contained in defendant Cuffey's suppression motion and responsive submissions by the United States to Tammy believed would potentially allow people familiar with the circumstances to determine Tammy's identity. That's what we just talked about. Upon reviewing the court filings in this case, Tammy contacted her controlling DEA agent at the time, James Davidson. Agent Davidson testified at the evidentiary hearing that Tammy expressed concern that motions filed in this case and the government's response to those motions contained specific detailed information that Tammy feared would reveal her identity or make it much easier for someone to figure out Tammy's identity. CS1 or Tammy panicked and took several measures to try to protect herself. And I'm saying once again, I want to leave that small. I shouldn't say small. I want to leave that gray area there to say, I haven't seen any paper. I'm gonna say it again. I haven't seen any paperwork that directly 1,000% says that CS1 is Tammy. I'm replacing her name when we see CS1 while reading this to interpret not only what 50 Cent is presenting, but what the entire internet is already interpreting and feeding all of us as information. It's already viral. This is why we even have the face of Tammy. This is why we even hear the name Tammy Cohen's or whatever, right? None of this could be a discussion if the internet and 50 and all these people are not saying that CS1 is Tammy. None of this could apply then, okay? We wouldn't even be talking about Tammy. So I want to be careful and say once again, I'm replacing the name for the sake of the read based on what we've already been given. But I have not seen that CS1, and I don't expect to see it, but is 1000% Tammy Cole. Okay. So let's go back to the read. Those measures including contacting the undersigned magistrate judge. So this is all the suppression stuff. We don't need to go crazy on that. In a further attempt to protect him or herself in spring. Yeah, this is all the suppression stuff. All right, let's go here. Cuffey's former counsel, DEA agents and prosecutors from the U.S. Attorney's Office in St. Louis also threatened to circulate the unsworn affidavit to all parties involved, including the undersigned. Oh, so well, the prosecutors and they was threatening like, we finna put this shit out there. They play their game, man. Stay out the streets, man. I damn sure am like shit. Tammy unsworn affidavit specifically takes issues with the statement in the wiretap affidavit suggesting that Meech hooked up the deal between Cuffey and Suarez. The unsworn affidavit suggests instead that Agent Cromer implicated Meech because he was jealous of Meech's relationship with Tammy. Let me read that again. The unsworn affidavit suggests instead that Agent Cromer implicated Meech because he was jealous of Meech's relationship with Tammy. That's another reason to substitute CS1 for bare minimum, at least a his or, I mean, a her instead of a his, right? because 99% of the time, people, with all due respect, if we talk about jealous of a relationship, you took that's implying man woman, right? So whether they meant to say that or not, I'm just saying. I'm just saying a little common sense there. But one thing about that sentence, people, is that's implying that Agent Cromer, I believe that's the one early in the paperwork that they're saying is in the car at times working with Tammy and taking these trips and trying to set whatever. Maybe he grew a liking towards Tammy. Tammy is an attractive woman. Maybe he grew a liking towards Tammy, and now he's implicating Meech because he's jealous of Meech and Tammy. That's what's being implicated there. The unsworn affidavit suggests instead of Agent Cromer implicating Meech because he was jealous of Meech's relationship with Tammy. So this is bouncing around, people. Let's be real. This is the black and white paperwork that they tell us to read. Okay. This backdrop of actual and perceived threats to Tammy diminishes the credibility of Tammy's testimony and instead very strongly suggests that perhaps due to Tammy's personal and business relationship, as well as out of concern for her own safety and the safety of Meech, Tammy had an incentive to attempt to distance Meech from Suarez and Cuffy. That's clear. That's saying that obviously, if they're saying Meech is doing this, Meech is doing that, and they're trying to contradict some of her prior testimony, some of her prior work, and when she starts saying like, "Oh no, Meech wasn't involved," they're saying like, well, number one, you fear for your life, so you have that incentive to retract or go backwards. Number two, you this whole life rights thing, right? So there's financial incentive as well. Number three, there's personal incentive, i.e., your relationship with Meech, for you to go in the opposite direction. So that's what the paperwork is saying, whether you believe what you want to believe from that piece. All right. On Sunday, August 5th, 2012, at approximately 11 a.m., Suarez began contacting Tammy using two different telephone numbers. He sent Tammy text messages from telephone number, yada. Damn, why didn't it cover that? I mean, if somebody else got this number now, they're going to get blown up. Like, let me go over that. I don't mean, like, Jesus. They're not even covering. There's another number here. They're not covering these numbers. And plays voice phone calls to Tammy from telephone number, yada, 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 specifically around 11 a.m. Suarez and Tammy, a text message asking CS1 to call Cuff, a.k.a. Gatlin, and tell Cuffy to give Suarez a number so that Suarez could talk to him. At least they're trying to mix up phones or whatever. Testimony of Agent Johnson responded shortly thereafter, indicating she would do so when she got home. A little more than an hour later, at approximately 12:18 p.m., Suarez placed a voice call to Tammy. And when he did not reach Tammy, he sent a text message indicating he was trying to call and asking CS1 Tammy to pick up. Okay. This is the testimony of Agent Johnson now. In an apparent response to Suarez's request, Tammy placed a call to Dion Gatlin, once again Cuffy, at approximately 12:43 p.m., but did not reach him. So this just sounds like, the bouncing around and the coordination of allegedly or possibly a play, right? Suarez desired to connect with Cuffy and Tammy on August 5th, 2012 appears to have been a matter of some urgency. All right. All right. So this is connecting those three parties. After speaking with Suarez at 1:05 p.m., Tammy sent Agent Cromer a text message around 1:09 p.m. asking him to call back and indicating it was just business. At that time, Agent Cromer was returning by car and from an out-of-town trip with his family and did not immediately respond. Man, Tammy she ain't playing about her job, huh? I mean, this is all the play being put together. It's being laid out with all these times. We don't need that. All right. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna do one more thing for y'all with the paperwork before. I got a video to bring up, and also before I bring up the video, I'm gonna give you my answer, right, on what I believe. One more time, let me just pull up Flannery, which is Meech's last name, right? I'm gonna pull it up everywhere it exists in this particular paperwork. Right. It exists 39 times. And I got a point to drive home by doing that. Bear with me. All right, here. First time. This is defining who he is within BMF. Was associate, BMF, yada yada, with Cuffy. Okay. CS1, Tammy provided DA, Atlanta agents, Meech and Suarez became associated. Okay. Meech arranged through Tammy for Suarez to provide cocaine in multiple kilograms quantities to Cuffy. Okay. Meech and Cuffy and Suarez, evidence presented at the Franks hearing. Okay. The relationship between Meech and, the relation CS1s, which Tammy, they're saying, relationship with Meech, Suarez, and Cuffy. Meech, friends and associates. Held Meech's power of attorney and life rights and creative control. Meech life short story and profit of, that's the $1 million talk. Okay. Cromer were aware of Tammy's relationship with Meech. Okay. CS1 testified Meech was very well known. Yep. Calls from total strangers asking about Meech. Yep. Saw that. Tammy's relationship with Meech. We saw that in September 2011. We read all of this piece. CS1 asked how Meech was doing. We read that. That's Cuffy reaching out through Tammy. We read that. We read that. Defendant Cuffy first contacted. We read that. We read that. We read that. Understood that Cuffy and Meech were friends. We read that. Centered more around Meech's life rights. We read that. However, some point Meech asked CS. Yep, we read all of this. At the evidentiary hearing, Tammy denied that Meech had any involvement in any drug trafficking activities between Suarez and Cuffy, and denied that Tammy ever informed DA agents that Meech was so involved. That we read that. After this piece, they tried to contradict her and say that she had incentives to retract or backtrack. So we read all that. Affidavit regarding Meech's involvement in the suspected drug conspiracy. Yeah. Attempt to see Meech to try to explain his or her position and try to deflect any accusations coming. We read that. We read all of this. We read all of this. We read all of this. Jealous of Meech's. This was the allegation or the interpretation that Agent Cromer implicated Meech because he was jealous of Meech's relationship with Tammy. We read all of that. They're talking about the safety around Tammy there. Tammy had an incentive to attempt to distance Meech from Suarez and Cuffy. Read all that. There's only three more. Suarez and Cuffy at Meech's request for the purpose of Suarez supplying Cuffy with we read that. That Suarez, Meech had met while both, we read that. Meech was going to receive some sort of financial benefit. Okay, like what do you expect if you're moving and shaking, right? And this is the last one, his name in this particular paperwork. Historical knowledge of Cuffy, Meech, and the Black Mafia family drug trafficking activities. Okay, why did I do that? Why did I don't need the paperwork anymore. We got a video that we're going to bring up, people. Why did I bring up all 30 plus occurrences of Meech's name in the paperwork? I'm going to tie that into my personal position as of right now. All you people on the internet that are saying, yes, Big Meech snitched, or no, Big Meech didn't snitch. If you're a street nigga, you got to check yourself. You got to check yourself. The paperwork that the clips of that full actual paperwork that's going around, like I received the same thing. I received 2 pages of it. And then I went and got the whole thing and I just read it with y'all and I pulled out Big Meech's name in every place of the paperwork. On one side, there is nothing in that paperwork that flat out says Big Meech told, Big Meech set up Cuffy, Big Meech put Tammy on Cuffy to do a deal with Cuffy and Suarez in an attempt to get his 30 years reduced down to 20. All of these interpretations that are going around the internet, the paperwork doesn't say any of that, of what Big Meech did any of that. You have to read the black and white and then be honest. Okay? Now, on the other side, some of the interpretations of that, and then you see what they tried to do in the paperwork there of discrediting Tammy or CS1 and laying out the reasons why when you spoke to this agent, you had a different story, or the life rights, or your relationship with Meech, or the. So they're discrediting her and saying that you're lying to us now. You're working for us, but now you're lying to us. And here's the reasons why we believe that you're lying. So maybe it's an exciting thing to do, to run around the internet and say, Big Meech told. Maybe it's also beneficial to some people to say, ain't no paperwork. No, he ain't tell. What I'm saying from what we just read, it's still great. Like, I think it's irresponsible to call Big Meech a rat based on what we just read. But it's also naive to say, oh, he definitely didn't do nothing based on what we just read. Okay? So after I read that, I still stand in the middle. Now, I know that there's more that can come. This documentary from Tammy, if she speaks out, once again, if she has phone calls or text messages, and this isn't the only paperwork, this is a big piece of paperwork to me. But there's a lot of other things that's happening while Meech is home, while Meech is in jail, other people's cases that Meech's name might be, all this type. I think there's a lot of stuff. But that paperwork that we just read seems to, from what we're interpreting, be the main thing speaking on Cuffy, Tammy, and Meech. While knowingly Tammy, is working. So here comes, before I bring this video up, here comes the biggest question. While people like me still sit in the middle and say, I think it's irresponsible to call him a rat. And I also think it's naive to say he definitely did not do nothing. I'm standing in the middle, right? Based on the paperwork, okay? Here's the thing. What people are going to, if you pay attention to videos like this or you read paperwork like that, you know what it does? It makes you say, one of the key factors is, does or did Big Meech know that Tammy was working? Because clearly in the paperwork, there's narcotics and plays being put together and whatnot between these four parties. But it's already shown earlier in the paperwork that she's in the cars with the agent and whatnot. She's fully working. So the question becomes, Meech, did he know of Tammy's status? Did he have incentives to say, I want to get this 30 down to 20? Or is he just somebody that got a woman out on the street moving and shaking in areas that he legally can't even put himself? He can't be signing paperwork and deals and doing all of this. Or maybe he even wants to distance his name and BMF from stuff. And he got this down-ass chick on the street that's busting moves for him. That to me is not fully decided. We know it's going to be one or the other sooner or later, but that's the big answer or question. Does Big Meech know of Tammy's status, right? Now, Blue has something to say about that. And you know, Blue has been sharing his opinions for quite some time. Now, as per that question specifically, and shout out to the Rare Report. I love the name. This is the RBE channel, right? I love the name, the Rare Report. Shout out to the Rare Report, man. He's got Blue Da Vinci details what really happened, how Big Meech set everything up, and how 50 Cent knew about it. So he's also saying 50 knew. Wow. But this is Meech's interview here. It's 42 minutes. I'm just going to go to this part right here, 13 minutes and 23 seconds, when he gets asked the question. And once again, shout out to the Rare Report for this new this new Blue Da Vinci interview. Okay, here's Blue answering the big pot of gold question.
So my next question to you is this. This is most important. What year did you have a conversation, as you previously reported and told it in other interviews? What year did you inform Big Meech that Tammy Collins was a snitch?
2017. So in 2017, I was on the phone with dude. This is the last time I ever heard his voice personally. Okay. We on the phone, regular conversation, big homie, little homie shit. We just talking. And I had my man Tone with me over there, another dude. He from New York. He from BMF too. And he was like, man, ask me what's up with the TV show shit. And I was like, oh yeah, bro, what's up with that TV show shit? He like, oh, we doing it. He like 50 doing it. He like, y'all don't be saying shit to 50. You get to had a, you know what I'm saying, bothered and don't do the shit. He like, but I gotta wait to holler at Tammy to see where we actually at with the paperwork. And when he's mentioned her name, see, I had been talking to him and I had the paperwork, but he was on a jail phone for a long time, so I wasn't mentioning nothing. You feel me? He didn't have no private phone, so hey, he was on the regular jail phone that's being recorded, so I wouldn't bring none of the shit up. But when he mentioned her name, I automatically just was like, bro, you ain't heard what's going on with her, but she got your name fucked up in all this paperwork. And he was like, man, I heard some shit, but whatever it is, it ain't got shit to do with me.
Stop right there. Stop right there. Right there.
I want to stop right there too. Shout out to the Rare Report. If y'all want to go listen to the rest of that Blue Da Vinci interview, go check it out. Once again, go over to the channel, the Rare Report. Shout out, shout out, shout out. They're doing some interviews. I think they got a Cuffy recent interview as well. So the snowball continues. Okay. We have Blue Da Vinci talking. I know he got into it and had some back and forth with, I think, J-Bo. We saw Big Meech stand up on that Instagram post or whatever. He made his statement in response to 50. 50 is continuing to stand on his allegations in a very, very strong way. Cuffy's making phone calls home, doing interviews. He's saying what he's saying. One of the last people to hear from, to be honest, is Tammy. Hence 50 saying documentary on the way. She's one of the last people to hear from. Now, staying fair and staying real once again. If Tammy, this documentary comes out, or if Tammy comes out and starts talking and all she's doing is saying, oh yeah, he did that shit, you're going to have a lot of people that's going to say, all right, well, she said it, so, and they're going to go. You're going to have a lot of people also say, like, where's your proof? Like, you guys can't pick and choose when to apply the code. You can't say paperwork, and then not use the paperwork. So there's other forms of paperwork, meaning like a real legitimate text message, a real legitimate recorded phone call, I guess, right? Something that proves that Meech knew what Tammy was doing. And that's where they came with the term of third-party cooperation. Like, what they're trying to say Meech is doing is, Tammy is working, and you put a play together. You use your name between Suarez and Cuffy to say, I'm going to put y'all together for a play. And being that Tammy's working, Tammy can insert herself and the agent to capture that, saying that, oh, Meech is the one that facilitated all of this from jail, right? And now you got this drug deal between Cuffy. Cuffy goes and gets put up. I don't know the status of Suarez. And you helping to get some drugs off of the street or whatever the case may be, you reduce Meech's sentence from 30 to 20. That's what they're trying to say, right? But in that paperwork, Tammy said that Meech had no involvement. He didn't know, yada, yada, yada. And then they tried to contradict her. So if you go and buy code and paperwork, people, you don't have an answer yet, okay? Blue is saying what he's saying. Other people are chiming in. If you go by the paperwork, you don't have an answer yet. That is the truth of what the paperwork is, and we just fucking read it, okay? Shout out to the chat. Keep sending me paperwork. Keep sending me updates. DM me. Hit me on Twitter. I'm getting a million DMs. I know saying this on a stream is just like I get a million DMs now, and I'm trying to get through all of them. So try to keep it real productive. Like, please don't send me a clip of like, yo, Blue Da Vinci tweeted F Big Meech. I don't care about that, people. I got too many DMs to go through. If you're gonna DM me, people, please let it be like, yo, ARP, here's some paperwork, or here's a screenshot, or here's something that we don't know yet, or something that was just revealed, or this happened yesterday afternoon. Did you see it? Let it be substantial, something that I could, go do homework on, or bring to the rest of our chat here and say, yo, people, this is what this is news, fresh off the hot press. And I will give you your shout out, and I will always give you your credit. You know what I'm saying? But please, I got too many DMs for y'all to send me stuff that's just like small. Like, you know what I'm saying? Please, please, please. But that's the truth, people. So don't jump out any windows. But at the same time, don't be naive.
Don't confuse silence with work ethic. I'm a boss making decisions, my first fetish. The verse cherished is perfect, that's a reverse blemish. I dropped it, connected the block, learn Tetris.
This is the Sorry True Podcast. Welcome to the house of. And shout out to the members.